The BIPOC Coach Collective proudly presents Elevate and Celebrate. This is a podcast to showcase our members, dive deeper into their journeys, and express who they are into the world. Our mission is to curate a brave and authentic space for coaches to connect and to elevate our voices globally in the coaching profession. Learn more about us at bipoccc.org. Your story matters, your voice matters. Let's start the show. Welcome to episode 17 of Elevate and Celebrate. This month, we're going to be joined with Karen Brown, who has an extensive background on leadership. He's built up $2 million companies in the spaces of health and welfare administration, pension administration, and she's going to share her story about how leaders connect, how leaders make a difference, how leaders can plan and strategize, and also using this, leveraging her knowledge to help coaches of color scale, grow their businesses, really do the thing that we have grown our business, we've built our businesses to do in the first place, right? Of getting to a place of where we can't go any further, and then she can take you beyond that. So you're going to be privy to an amazing conversation. And what I want to share with you is some quick announcements. This month is a little bit of a curveball because our facilitation call, we're going to have a coach and bench panel. That's happening on June 10th. That's a Monday. So typically we have our calls, our facilitation members only calls on Fridays. So if you're a member, if you're a champion with us, June 10th is our next call. That's going to be the same time, 12 o'clock Eastern through 1 o'clock. And you're going to have an opportunity to talk to some unbelievable coaches, get some new ideas of how to grow your business. And it's perfect timing as we're leading into summer, our summer break through July and August. So we won't have any calls, any facilitation calls, any open house calls. So June 10th is our next members only call. And then June 28th, the last Friday of the month, that's right before summer, right? School's out for summer. So join us there, open to the public, bring a friend. We would love to have you. We'd love to have anyone you feel would get value from being in our community. And all that said and done, let's start the show. All right, Karen, welcome to this month's Elevate and Celebrate. And usually I let people start off with like who they are, their background and stuff, but like there's something that was really interesting to me that you shared in the application process of this, right? You explained some ideas about overcoming early adversity. So I want to kind of start here because I think this is going to set the table for the value that you're going to bring to our audience and to the world itself. So can you share a little bit about what you meant by that, or go into some detail about these adversities?
Sure. So I think the first I'll just share is having parents who don't believe in your dream. And um, and I know that there are probably listeners who are going to hear this and just wanting to help them to see that regardless if it's something that's in your spirit and that you know that you need to do, sometimes you just have to do those journeys alone, and you learn so much in those silent times. And so for me, I really wanted to go to college. And, just to give some background, my parents were, had high school, and I would even say, probably for my dad, I'm not even sure he even went to high school. Um, my dad's bringing, he was an orphan. His parents died when he was very young. This kind family took him in. And so his perspective a lot on education, it just wasn't there. He just believed in hard work. And again, respect my father, who's now deceased, but respected his beliefs, but at the same time, that wasn't what was on my heart. And with my mother, they always had they were employed by others. They were blue collar workers, but they also had side businesses as well. And so you always saw them working, right? They took a pride in what they did. But when it was time for me to make a decision about my future, my parents' perspective was you graduated from high school, you go get a job. And my dream was no, I really wanted to go to college because I really wanted, to pursue that avenue. Well, for me, they didn't agree. And so the whole time I was going through college, my parents didn't speak to me, didn't talk to me. If there was any conversation, it was with my siblings, is kind of how I um found out like how they were doing or whatever, but to talk to me directly, they didn't. Um, and it was really, at first, it was very jarring. It was hurtful. Um, I didn't understand it. I just didn't understand why they took that position. But again, they did. And again, as time went on, it didn't deter me from what I wanted to do, which was, like I said, to go to college. So I did graduate with a bachelor's in accounting. And so went on to pursue um, endeavors in that field. But even with that, I didn't follow the norm. Like either people, become, the CPA route or whatever. But I ended up getting into a niche, which was in pension administration at first.
Mhm.
And then I was given opportunities to learn health and welfare administration. And all of it's around the Department of Labor and IRS and ERISA law. But it really opened my eyes to another whole um, industry that I just didn't know about. I knew I hadn't seen it in my community. I
Mhm.
knew people that I would even talk to had no clue of what I was talking about. And so, but it did lead to me being able to lead two million-dollar companies once I got things under my belt. But again, it was even with the challenge with my parents and their not having that support, I was still able to um, navigate through that. And like I said, a thriving career. Um, and before my father passed, um, he was able to see me get an award. So just to say that there was um, a change in it. My mother, again, she got to be with me in some very special moments as well too. And so, regardless, I just followed my heart. Like I respected them, I loved them,
Mhm.
but it was just important me to do what I needed to do for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's. Whew. Yes, you speaking that right. I'm thinking about my own family dynamics at times and how it's interesting going through like a third party, right? Kind of going around to talk to somebody or have somebody be a liaison within the bloodline, which
Mhm.
is interesting in itself. But as you're speaking, I'm really curious. Like, what made you say this is gonna be my path? I don't want to go down your route. Not that it's any judgment on your father, rest his soul,
Mhm.
or your
Mhm.
mother, right? But you
Mhm.
said no. That's your life, but I want my life. Like, why? Why choose that?
And to be honest, when you look back even at the dynamics within my family, I was always that person who always went a different route, right? It wasn't necessarily new. Um,
Mm,
I just felt like, that there was more than just going to go get a job. Like I just felt like there was more. Um, I love learning, right? So that played a part in it as well. Um, and it was one is having conversations, you're in high school, right? And you're having conversations with, your peers, and you're hearing about things or opportunities that were provided for them. And I was like, well, why not me? You know,
Mm,
why not? But it was just one of those things. And I've always felt like when you have that gut feeling, you just have to follow it, right? And until you find whatever that piece is, wherever it's leading you. But that I can tell you was something that was always, it was just this desire, this burning desire to go to college. And I just I just I wouldn't deter from what I wanted to do. And like I said, it definitely has blessed me.
yeah, I love hearing those kind of stories. I love the power of our minds and what happens when we get what I call seriously committed, right? There's a
Mhm. Mhm.
distinction where people have intentions, which are good, nothing wrong with
Mhm.
intentions, but a commitment is something at the end of the day it gets done,
Mhm.
no
Mhm.
matter what.
Mhm. Yep. And to say too is, again, it allowed, and I think what sometimes we don't factor in sometimes is when we follow whatever those dreams or those callings, the doors that are open for you are amazing, right? Just the people that you come in contact with. Um, had I not followed my dream, I would have not met one of the most brilliant women who was working in the space of pension administration at the time. Um, and her opening up her practice to allow me to not only do my internship, but allowed me to stay and to work under her so that I could learn, so that I had a very strong foundation moving into my career. Unheard of. Um, she would allow me because she did a lot of work with the Department of Labor. And so she was called in as an expert and, you know what I mean, worked on complicated compliance issues with them. And it was just amazing to be able to have opportunities like that. Like I said, in spaces I would have never been able to be a part of, but I would have never gotten that if I hadn't, you know what I mean, stayed committed to my own passion. So I say that, you know, I grew very quickly in the first company that I worked for just because of the support and knowledge and
Hmm.
the pouring in of this woman. Amazing. So, like I said, it's so important. That, like you said, intentions are good, but really staying focused on what you're being called to is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Because you really do begin to walk into your own authenticity. Because that's where you kind of really begin, who am I? Who am I going to be when you're starting out in your 20s in your career? And so those are things that I think, like I said, are just blessings. And I think that's the best way I can put it,
Yeah.
share.
No, I love it. It's a great share. And it prompted this question in my head is like,
Mhm.
all right, who is Karen, right? Who has she been through these different stages of her life and who does she choose to continue to be or want to evolve into? I don't know if that might be it. It's the weight question, right? Like I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
goodness, like who am I? Like that's
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
universal thought, but like I wonder who do you see yourself as in your eyes? Or yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it's always important to know who we are. So for me, I'm a daughter, I'm an aunt, I'm a sister friend, I'm a mentor, I'm a coach. Um, but the one thing that I feel like I am is a connector of generations. Um, and I share that because as a young girl, um, my aunties, again, they were farmers. These women grew up on farms. And so, um, again, didn't have, a lot of education. And I remember one of my grandmother's sisters would always give me documents. And I can tell you it was like 11 or 12. And she was like, okay, this came in the mail. Tell me what this is. Right. And it would be at least once a month, we would be at her home. And it was always these documents. What is this? What is this? But being able to give her the information that she needed in whatever it was that she was asking for me to explain to her, to then at the same time being able to take that same information from that grandmother aunt to doing the same thing for my mother,
Mm,
um to then being able to do that for my sister and brothers for their children. And so it's always been this generation of connecting and community, um that has always been a part of my life. And now, when I look at what I do, my mother was recently diagnosed with dementia. And so, even in that, and being able to navigate that space and to do this journey with her, again, as I shared, I worked in pensions, then I got into health and welfare administration. And to be able to use all of the knowledge I've gleaned over 20 years, to be able to be that advocate, to be able to walk into um, the doctor's offices to make sure that she's getting the care that she needs, being able
mm,
to be aware of the resources that are in the community to be able to help her to navigate through those challenges, um, to be able to um, be the administrator for a 9-figure fund, and to be able to have a team with, you know, you know, when we're looking at age, when we're looking at race, we're looking at
mm,
gender, and to be able to bring that team to be where, instead of in a situation of helping them to be able to communicate, right? To be able to work together, to be able to meet goals. Again, it was one of, I think, the most interesting um things, because you have this 68-year-old grandmother, and then you have this 25-year-old really first job, and being able to help them to see that they're really not that far apart. It's just how they communicate with one another. In my 20 years, the even one, my goal was always everybody has value,
mm,
everybody has purpose. And how do I take those people or these teams and to see how we can use our strengths to be able to meet our end goals. I don't, and I still don't believe that you fire people. I just, that's just one of my things. It would be have to be some really serious things, because I believe that somebody may not fit in this role. And again, if I'm in and I'm brought in to serve, it's like, okay, why did you hire them in the first place? What was it about
mm,
them that you thought they brought value to a team? And what if it is, again, especially with, we're talking about age, my 68-year-old employee wasn't good with technology, but she she had a memory that was out of this world. She was great at communicating, but my 25-year-old was great at the technology, but needed to grow in communication and using their strengths to be able to help them to work together as a team. And again, the turnaround was things like the accounts receivable were behind. One would do the outreach, the other would take care of taking care of the financial part so that
Mm,
things were kept up to date. But it was just using them as a team to be able to get things done. They still did their jobs, but you just lean in on their strengths to be able to help them to meet the end goal, which was to collect the money, right?
yeah.
Um, you had in this where there was a lot of customer service. I had one person who was on the customer service team who was really an introvert, but knew the industry, right? Knew what to do, who to call to get things done. But then you had another one who was your extrovert,
Mm,
right? And who needed help. And so one would help and they would spend 15, 30 minutes, but having them in teams to be able to help them to be able to reach the end goal, which is to really to serve the person on the other end of that call who just needed to know I'm not getting in to get my MRI, or I can't, they're telling me I can't get my prescription, or, they're telling me
yeah.
this, they're telling me that. And so, like I said, it was just, using those things. And so that part of the generation of what I learned when I was young just played into my leadership, and just being able to go across and to help people to find the median to be able to get whatever that end goal was to get it done.
Mm. No, something you spoke to earlier, you said a big word that I love, the buzzword about being a connector. And
Mhm,
obviously in leadership, it's a critical skill, right? Some people
mhm,
might be like, this is a soft skill. Like, what do you mean it's a soft skill? You have people, you're
mhm,
connecting with vendors, you're connecting with other partners,
mhm,
obviously team members,
mhm,
staff, key members, all these individuals, and there has to be a way for you to be the glue to kind of keep them all
mhm,
together.
mhm,
And in your experience, right, you mentioned leading $2 million, multi-million dollar organizations.
mhm.
What have you seen in your role, in your eyes, the difference between the leaders that thrive in those types of spaces, high pressure, and maybe I'm projecting that, and
Mhm,
others that they're not quite there yet, or they suffer, they decline, right? They may reach a position, right? They might
mhm.
ascend, and then they just don't quite make it, so to speak. Like, what have you seen as that difference?
I think one is it's about training, and I think it's training and support. And I'll say the training part is a lot of times people are promoted without giving them the right tools that they need in order to lead, right? Um, if their skills are, that they're task oriented, right? That, they can get things done, but they don't have the strengths, or they're not good at relationships, it definitely hinders. And what I found is they're either really good with relationships, but not good with the managing, right? So it's either
Yeah.
or, right? And so I just think that it's one where, again, it's back to you've got to know the people that you're working with, right? You've got to know their strengths and their weaknesses, but you've got to figure out what's the plan to get them on that level field. The other thing that I feel is a issue, we're not always clear on the expectations, right?
Mm,
So if we're not clear, and again, it goes back to communication, right? If we're not clear about who we are to show up as, or what needs to get done, it really hurts the person. It doesn't hurt, necessarily the company, right? Because when people leave a seat, the company still goes on. It may have some hiccups here or there, but they normally just go on unless it's really a train wreck, right? But in most cases, that's not it. And so when we look at why things work, why some people work and some don't, is a lot of them lead with empathy, right? And or they know what their weaknesses are, but they either have people within their inner circle who help them to fill those gaps. And that's where the team comes in. Um, and that's one thing that I think that I appreciate, um, that I've been on teams and even led or had people that were leading me on teams that even if they really weren't good managers, it was okay, what can I do to support that person, that manager, but also how can I support my team? Um, it also goes into the point ego. The ego can't show up, right? Ego can't be a part. And whenever there's the ego in things, um, it can definitely fracture a team when there's too much ego. Um, and so I believe that people are there. So you're a servant, you're a servant leader. Um, and for me, saying thank you, um, is not hard. That should be the one thing that you thank people. Um, and I don't know if your work history, there weren't a lot of it. So always saying thank you to the team. Thank you and it could be the simplest thing or it could be the most complex, but people want to be appreciated. And so, um, and I think if you ask me, those are the things I would say, are the difference between that yin and the yang of leaders. And I strive to be that leader that, you know, um, I need to listen, instead of speaking. I need to hear from the people, because a lot of times when you're in leadership, you're not doing the work, right?
Right.
You're not doing it. They're the ones that are on the front lines. They're the ones that are doing it. What are they telling you? What are you asking them? You know, um, and again, it's really about, to me, always everything is going to always fall back to communication and whatever we talk about. But you know, if it's not good communication, it really does hurt your team as well. So
Yeah.
that's my
No,
thoughts on that.
no, those are great thoughts, and that's beautiful segue. You said the one of the magic words, right? I'm always listening for the words, right? Servant leadership, and in this space, you are now coaching and working with organizations. You know, tell me, what would you bring to the coach, not only from your own experience, but now
Mhm.
how your lens of your own, you being the one who's done that work, right? You've been
Mhm.
in these spaces, these places that these
Mhm.
leaders are going. How has coaching helped your clients?
I think at this point, one of the biggest things, especially women of color, is the toxic work environments, right? Because a lot of the women I work with have left, these some C-suite positions to now do their own thing, right? As solopreneurs. And one of the biggest things I can tell you is to help them to work through that trauma. Because a lot of them, for me, is I help them to work through the fear of hiring now, right? A lot of what I can tell you I'm dealing with is because they've grown their businesses, and there's this fear of hiring. And a lot of it is fear of the repeat of what they saw, really not having good examples of what leadership is, um, the not wanting to let go of control, right? So those are the things that helping them work through, but the hardest is helping them to work through that trauma, because they don't have to be what they were. Like they don't have to do the repeats. That would be number one. Number two, I would say that's important to me, that I want for them is I want them to be healed and whole, right? I think for, and again, I think this is just people of color, period. A lot of us have had to do code switching, right? We had to be one person while we were there, and then we were on our personal time, we were someone else. And that's the second thing that's important for me is to have them to be their true, authentic selves. Um, because you can't lead without being authentic. You're not going to be able to hire the right people if you aren't authentic, because you'll end up hiring people that may have skills, but they don't align with your values and they don't agree with your mission. And so for me, those are two things that I I really try to make sure that the people that I serve, that they're very clear about who they are and being clear about their values. Because when they are ready to hire, they're doing a better job, because again, it's just not about the skills, because you can find the most skilled people but just not be aligned with what your values are and can totally tank your business, right? And so again, it's just using that for me are the biggest things, because I feel like you can teach people processes and systems, right? You can do that part. It's the self work that we need to spend more time with that solopreneur, getting them to that space. But again, that's one of the things I think I've been addressing now for about a year, is just those areas of just the specifically about the hiring piece and getting them ready to be incredible leaders.
Yeah, and I think that represents itself in what you've landed as a or created as a signature program, a hired to scale. So I'd love for you to
Mm-hmm.
tell us some more about that, because I think this is right building onto
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
and helping these leaders eliminate that huge problem at the start of like, are you hiring the right person? How much is it going to
Mm-hmm.
cost you to replace this person or retrain somebody? And if you're not, they're skilled, but they're not the right fit, they're not aligned, then what are they
Mm-hmm.
really worth at the end?
Mm-hmm. And I think, yeah, so for the scaling, I mean, again, to scale, you've already reached your max. You can't take on any more clients, right? You don't have any more times in a day. You've already, look, you're working long hours. Um, and if you've got a family, how many vacations have you missed? Like, how have you not been present for your family? Right? Because you know, now at a point where you can't do any more. And I think in some cases that's where I find people they're at that brick wall. And it's really for them, it's like you're not going to be able to grow unless you expand your team. And so it's really helping them to see, what does scaling look like for you, because it's going to be different, right? It's going to be different for each person. Um, Scaling may be, they may want to have more clients. And let's say if it was let's just use as an example, a coach. If you want to bring on more clients, then you're going to need to replicate yourself, right? You're going to need to do that. Well, again, if you've not done things like, so have you been writing down what you do, right? How do you do things if you don't have SOPs? But just giving them tools, simple tools to look at. Like Scribe is free, right? You can pay for it. There's a pay version, but there's Scribe. You could turn it on and let it watch you, right? do what you're doing so that you can start the simple foundation of starting to build your SOPs, to start getting those. Um, there are things like Zoom now does a lot of things as well too, recording, taking notes, things that can help those processes that they do. There's a lot of software systems, there's a lot of automation that's out there. What's the one that's going to best meet your needs? A coach is going to need something different from somebody that's a consultant, right? That's providing a end product. Um, so there's so many different things to the scaling of just looking at what's missing. One that I think is another fear that I've encountered is I don't have money, right? And a lot of times, I think, and I don't know if you've had this in conversations with other entrepreneurs, but where a lot of times they're not good at forecasting or really clear about their price structures, right? Um, and different things that they can look at to be able to help them to put themselves in a position to where they can scale if they make certain tweaks, right? To those areas. One is, like I said, especially um in I had a conversation recently with a group, um, and I ended up training them on what profit and loss statements were because they weren't familiar with them, and helping them to see the value in doing this and taking it baby steps with them until they got each part down. But the difference that it made for them when they started projecting their 2024 goals and every quarter looking at what worked, tweaking what didn't to keep them going through the end of the year. Um, I think another big thing in the transition would be not understanding, especially when it comes to what they charge, right? Not charging their worth. I think that would be a big one, is not charging their worth. Um, and one is spending too much time looking at the person on your left instead of staying focused on the people you're supposed to serve. Well, they're doing that, so I'm going to try that. And that necessarily doesn't mean that what they're doing is going to work for you. And two is who's for you is for you. Nobody can take who's for you. And so again, those two still fall back to the authenticity, right? Of just really being clear about who you are and how you're going to show up. But I just think that a lot of times with scaling, it, I feel like the scaling part is always to me the easy part, because I feel like once people become clear about who they are, all the other stuff starts to fall into place. And if their weaknesses is projecting or money or making sure that they're charging what they're worth, the the next thing is planning, right? And you got to always have a plan, right? Does the plan go as you want? Nope, it doesn't. But at least you got to have a plan, right? You got to have something where people can start from. And like I said, and plans are like roadmaps, right? The roads aren't always straight, they wind, but you just have to be open. So they have to be resilient. They have to be resilient when you're, in business. So that is something that definitely is key with the scaling. Um, and one is, even when there's self-doubt, where's that inner circle? Where's your inner circle that you can share, you know what I mean, those doubts, those fears, to be able to help you to do that. Um, this year, I've started to work within a small group of women where we're looking at Clifton strengths, and each one of us have done the Clifton strengths. We know what our top 10 zone of genius is. We know what we're good at. And so now what we're doing is, for the other 24 um, components that make up that Clifton strengths, we're now looking at what is on your top 10 that are in my bottom 24, so that I know that I can come to you to help me to fill in those gaps, that you can give me the wisdom and your genius to be able to pour into me. And so that's one of the things I've been doing this year. And it's been really, I got to tell you, really helpful, um, because it quickly um, helps me to rethink, especially when it comes to, like, marketing is not my strength. It ain't. I'm not going, I can't, right? But I've got one of the women in my inner circle who runs circles, can, tell me, nope, tweak this, no, do this. And it helps. And then that way I'm not spending 2 or 3 days, right, trying to figure it out. So I ended up just hiring her, right? Right, we did an actual joint venture is what we ended up doing. But it just made sense, right? It was like, no, that's your lane, you take care of that. This is your lane, you take care of that. And it just makes things, and it helps to grow faster, because you now have the team around you to be able to do that. And team looks like a lot of different things. Like, some people thinks it's just hiring, and like I
Mm.
said, I did a joint venture, which most people don't think about doing. But that's how I use the Clifton strengths to be able to find in my joint venture the people that I need in order to help me to build and scale up.
All of it. That I'm all about the collaboration, about leveraging other people's brilliance, because
Hmm.
me in this collective, right? There's me and
Hmm.
my three partners. We all have our
Hmm.
different areas of genius, our
Hmm.
different zones. Some of them are
Hmm.
not into podcasting or community
Hmm.
building. It's a little sprinkle of what we all do, but hey,
Hmm.
someone has to take care of like the operational side. Someone has to think about
Hmm.
the marketing side. I think about
Hmm.
the programming and scheduling and doing things like this side. So it all works together as a
Hmm.
machine, as long as we're all
Hmm.
aligned for the end goal, is what I'm hearing from you.
Yep. And that's the thing. And again, just like you said, you all are in alignment.
Yeah.
You all know that you guys, even though you guys have your different strengths, you guys are in alignment. You all understand the mission, right? And so it's easy for you guys to build together. Now, are there not disagreements? Yeah. I mean, we all
Yeah.
know that. And what I've learned for me personally is, when there's disagreements, it's when my ego is in it. It's not that I'm focused on the people I'm serving. It's not that I'm not thinking of what we said the goal was. It's about when my ego steps in and it takes over.
Yeah.
And the thing that I appreciate is that my inner circle loves me enough that they call it out, and that they help me to get back on track, to help me again to keep going up. And I think that there's no better way to do that than, again, because you need community. And if people think that they can do it alone, their scaling is going to be so freaking slow. You know what I mean? It's going to be so slow. You cannot scale alone. You need community. And like I said, just sharing my tool that I use to be able to build mine. I hope that that can help others to be able to build similar to it. And there's a lot of different, tests out there. You got Myers-Briggs, you got all of these others, but whichever one works best, I would say that would be a cool one to use, because especially the reason why I even say with Clifton Strengths why I believe it works, because it tells you that there's four things. You're either strong in execution, you're strong in strategic thinking, you're an influencer, or you're people building. And those are all four things that you need in a business,
Yeah.
right? They're all that you need in a business. And if you can build that core team based on that, it 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 can't lose. It just can't. And constantly having, again, being committed is another one. You've got to be committed to the team. You got to be committed to the growth. And like I said, but we know within our joint venture that we know that we're working stronger together now. And what we're learning from each other is how to, um, when it's time to hire, we'll be able to interview, we'll be able to navigate the questions that we need for those strengths in those positions. It's going to help us to do so much more when we're ready, because we're really learning each other and those skills and talents that we need. And so, I mean, like I said, it just, that's about scaling. You can't scale alone, and you got to find your team. You got to find your tribe. You got to find however you want to label it. You got to invest in that. And again, that's about connections too.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. That's. I think there's no better way to leave off that's a
Hmm.
masterclass, and really the mindset behind it, and the
Hmm.
mindset and the execution piece, right? And I love what you said
Hmm.
about your inner circle, about not just saying, "Oh, Karen, this is something you can try." It's like, no, they're going to hold you to the fire and actually with love, right? And sometimes
Hmm.
that's tough for people. Like, oh, that doesn't feel comfortable. Nothing about
Hmm.
leadership should feel comfortable. Nothing about
Never.
coaching. It's the distinction about we want to be safe. We want to be safe, know that we can express and share who we are and talk about different things. But if you're looking for comfort, this is not the place. Growth is everywhere except for comfort.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
would love for as we wrap this up, for
Hmm.
how do folks get in contact with you? How do we learn about hire to scale and the work you do?
But sure. So, you definitely, I spend time on LinkedIn because I feel like that's the platform for connections. I appreciate the other platforms, but that's where I live. So you can find me, my, it's the real K Brown. That's where I am there. My, I will say the hiretoscale.com is where you can go to find any information that you would like about um, working with me, whether it's one-on-one coaching, or if you're interested in a VIP day where I can work with you one-on-one to help you to scale.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you for one, sharing your
Yes.
expertise, and two, for your commitment to excellence, honestly, right?
Hmm.
Of taking everything you've been through, your experiences, and
Hmm.
leveraging them to help companies and clients scale, grow, and thrive. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share about myself. And the I wanted to share with you, I met Nicole, the podcast you did with Nicole.
Oh, Chamblin. Yeah, Nicole
Yes.
Chamblin.
Yeah. I met her. She used to be in the Hello Seven Club, and we had connected there. And so it was really, I just thought she was really cool. But then we kind of, pandemic happens, right? And,
Yeah.
people just kind of fall off. But that was one I was like, wow, she was, I really enjoyed that podcast. And
Thank you.
just to know, because I think when at the time I think she had just gotten like the diagnosis with the cancer, and so
Yeah.
that was kind of where I'd met when I had first met her. So
Yeah.
but yeah,
Love.
I just, to let you know that too. But that was
No,
one I
thank
was
you.
like, oh my gosh, somebody know her. No. So
I think no,
yeah.
we love her. She's an amazing champion
Hmm.
for our group, and
Hmm.
she's trained and shared so much about leveraging credentials, things that you talked about, right? Not just
Hmm.
having the skill set, but actually using them, applying them, and
Hmm.
making a business out of them. Not just an
Hmm.
idea, but an actual practice. So
Hmm. Yeah,
it's
but
great
that's
when like minds
awesome.
come together.
I definitely appreciate it. So again, thank you so much. And I know we'll see each other in Black Speakers Network. That
Yeah.
is, I gotta tell you, that's been one of the most amazing. I just started really engaging this year just because, last year was sunsetting my consulting business, and I was like, it was exhausting. And so I was like, no, that's gotta go. I want to really totally focus now on women of color. So it's been
That's
good. It's great to
that's
help, $1 million companies make money, but no, let's make some people of color some money too. So
that part. That part right there.
yes.
100%. That's
Yes.
what we're here to do too. So appreciate you, Karen. Thank you so much for being
All
who
right.
you are and the difference you're making.
Okay. You two have a good one.
Me too. Stay
All
blessed.
right. Bye bye.
Thanks for watching this episode. If you got value from this, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. And feel free to connect with us at bipoccc.org. See you next time.